better way to play player props or daily fantasy sports? Well, look no further than Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the leading over-under daily fantasy game. Why? Because it's so easy to use and win. You can make your picks in under 30 seconds and win up to 10 times your money in one day. Right now, we have a special offer for our viewers and listeners of the 7-Footers podcast. All you have to do is sign up now and use the promo code 7Footer, and Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Yep, that's right. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. So, join the over 150,000 others who found a better way to play and download the Prize Picks app today.
Seven Footers crew. Oh man, I jam out every week to that Prize Picks, that beat.
You jam out to the Prize Picks gambling.
I swear to God, I'm not just putting a shameless plug in for our every Tuesday betting segment, but man, the crew behind the Props Network here has really taken it to the next level. Graphics, music, everything. I jam every single week.
You jam hard. I feel you.
I mean, that's what happens when you're making money, thanks to Jarod.
Listen, every week we've had at least one winner. We hope that streak continues. Although we did the gambling segment earlier, and Paul George was not cleared to play. Oh, but he is playing now. So, by the way, that may change some of your bets. Though I said stay away from anything, regarding the point spread. I said do a Donovan Mitchell, parlay with points, 25 plus, Rudy Gobert blocks and rebounds. But, maybe if you're feeling froggy, you want to throw a little Paul George, 20-plus points. See what you get there.
Yeah, do what you got to do, guys. Take those risks. But just at the end of the day, know that Jarod has been putting out the knowledge on the table there for you. So, again, check us out every Tuesday. But now we got to get down to business here because it is March 29th that we're recording this, which means 2 weeks to the date is the start of the play-in tournament. It lasts until April 15th, few days long, and we got to talk about the teams that are contending and teams that are also giving us concern. So basically, we're going to go throughout the East and the West today, and we're not going to go throughout every team. Don't worry, we ain't here to bore you guys, But we are going to talk about these top contending teams and other teams that, are giving us a little bit of heart palpitations up there. So just take a deep breath. And this is how the ratings are going to go. Really, you guys know Jarod's going to spit some fire, but the ratings are going to go. We're not concerned. We're moderately concerned. And then straight up, the house is burning down. Dumpster fire city or whatever else you guys want to call it. But just make sure it's good and just juicy up in there. So let's start with the East here because the thing about the East is it's super deep and it's unpredictable. In my opinion, the most unpredictable out of the two conferences. There's only two choices. So yeah, again, I can't do math. So let's kick it off with the Miami Heat. Let's talk about the number one seed in the Eastern Conference because they're right up there neck and neck, 2 games ahead of the Sixers in the 2 slot there. So talk to me about the Heat. Are you worried at all? Remember, we talked a few episodes about how when they get into the postseason, it gets a little dicey for them.
I mean, Jenna, I'm definitely worried about them because they had that blow up on the sideline with Jimmy and Spo and UD. And, everybody's like, oh, Heat culture, it's all good. But then they proceeded to continue to lose a few more games in a row. Look, from a basketball standpoint, I still worry about their half-court offense. I've talked about this, right? Late in games when they need to score points, what do? Who are they going to? It seems that the Heat have 2 choices late in games that are close. It's either we have an all-defensive lineup or we have an all-offensive lineup. They don't have enough guys who are two-way, and that's a problem in the playoffs. So, I would say it's not quite houses burning down, but I'm a little bit more than moderately concerned about them because, again, they've kind of slipped the last several games, and I think that blow up between Spo and Jimmy and UD, while everybody's like, yo, Heat culture, that's how we do. We're all about accountability, but it's like, okay, I got you, but, that can kind of have things go a little froggy, especially when we're heading towards the playoffs. And, This is the time you want to be galvanized and really ready to go. So I'm a little concerned about Miami. And to your point, Jenna, the top 4 seeds in the East are only separated by a game. It's a game between first and fourth. So, Miami can tumble here and end up in the 4th spot.
That is very true. And hey, if there is some type of chemistry issue, I mean, hey, the Heat pride themselves on that one. So definitely concerning. And UD, I mean, you catch those clips when he was telling Jimmy Butler he was going to whoop his ass?
I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like, I just like that can't be good for morale heading into the postseason, regardless of like we're comfortable with that. That's how we do. I'm like, all right, we'll see. We'll see.
All right. Let's move on and go down to the number 2 spot in the East there to the Sixers. I mean, again, you said the margins are really thin here. So do you think Joel Embiid, this is his time? He can carry this Sixers team far in the postseason? I mean, now that they have James Harden?
You know, Jenna, for me with the Sixers, I'm moderately concerned about them because my issue is not so much Joel Embiid as much as it is, what's going to happen in terms of shooting late in games. Do they have enough floor spacing? Getting rid of Seth Curry in that Harden trade, I think is going to really hamper them. Furkan Korkmaz has not been great from 3 this year. Neither has Danny Green. And, Tobias Harris should be like, your third best player on a championship team. But who was everybody saying is the third most important player on this team? A second-year guy in Tyrese Maxey. And it's not that Maxey isn't good, but if a guy the level of Harris, at least the level that he gets paid at, is not the person you're looking to for your solid number 3, I got concerns. And then, of course, there is the James Harden concern, right? Which we do know in the postseason, he has not played his best. Jenna, it's funny. I was looking at his numbers career-wise, his career averages in the regular season versus the postseason. And it's actually not what people think. As you know, everyone in the postseason, their efficiency drops a little bit and the numbers go down a little bit because they're playing against the best defenses. You don't get Orlando and Houston and Oklahoma City and Detroit and all these crap teams. You don't get to play them. Everybody you play is good, right? His dip in production is on par with what you would expect in the playoffs. So what it is for Harden is it's that in the big games, he often has his poorest outings. And then when a game is already decided and his team's down by 20 points, like 2 or 3 minutes to go, that's when he puts on like, a scoring barrage and gets numbers, but they're empty numbers because the team loses anyway. So, he's going to have to be someone who plays up to his level and along with Joel Embiid. But yeah, I'm moderately concerned about them.
All right. I think that's fair. What about the reigning champion Bucks here, Giannis Antetokounmpo and the squad in Milwaukee? Because, I mean, hey, they have their big 3. Things are going well down there.
I have no concern. I am not concerned about the Bucks at all. They are the defending champs, as you said. They are the number 8 team in adjusted net rating. They're 5th in adjusted offensive rating, 14th in defense. And everybody's kind of like saying, but the defense. Look, Brook Lopez is back. Pat Connaughton is back. Again, Milwaukee's done this already. They won the championship last year. They're not feeling any pressure. They know in the biggest moments, they can pull on that reservoir. They can tap into that reservoir of, guys, we've done this before. We've been down 2-0, 3-2, whatever, right? And we've come back and we won the championship last year. And we have Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like, we are good. They have Chris Middleton. They have Drew Holiday. I just think that the Bucks are the most, like, again, everybody's talking about all the drama everywhere else. And Milwaukee's just kind of ho-hum, sleeping their way through it. Again, Jenna, only a game separates them. They come out and end up being the number 1 seed, have home court advantage throughout the East, and all roads go through Milwaukee. So I'm not worried about them at all right now.
Yeah, you've been saying it all season. Nobody's talking about Milwaukee, and they are, silently killing here. So I agree with your assessment there. Let's move on and talk about the Celtics, because I'm just going to say I'm concerned because I thought I blinked and they were the 1 seed and now they're the 4 seed. So this is how much it is a make or miss league. They're coming off that overtime loss to the Raptors. So not looking good for Boston, but they've been on a surge. So really, what's the deal here?
I'm moderately concerned about them to a little more than moderately concerned. 1, the Robert Williams injury. Time Lord has a torn meniscus and he's going to be out for at least a few weeks, which is going to take them in through at least the first round of the playoffs. He's a big reason why they are the number 1 ranked defense and adjusted defensive rating. He's not there. That's rim protection. That's switchability. That's a problem, number one. Number two, a less discussed situation. Do we know why Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Al Horford were out and not in that game in Toronto on Friday? They were listed on the injury report. And when asked, the Celtics had no comment. Well,
for all three?
For all three. Jason Tatum has said publicly that he is vaccinated against the COVID-19 vaccine. Okay. Jaylen Brown has said that it's a personal choice for everybody. And once people start giving me it's the personal choice for everybody, that tells me you're not vaccinated. Because if you are, you'll just come out and say you are, right? When you start doing that whole other thing and you do your Aaron Rodgers and you say I'm immunized and use all other kinds of language that isn't what we asked you, that makes my antennas go off and be like, well, if you're vaccinated, just come out and say it. What are you hiding? So the reason why that matters, Jenna, is because the Raptors are now in the 6th spot. Let's say the Celtics finish 3rd. Well, that's 2 games in Toronto now. All of a sudden, what? 2, 3 of you guys can't play? Again, the Kyrie thing was what everybody talked about all season because New York City had a vaccine mandate in place. Boston had an exemption for athletes and performers. So, and other cities didn't have one. So nobody else had any questions about what was what. Now we start digging into those reports of teams that went to Toronto and figure out, why was so-and-so on the injury report for that game? And everybody kind of just brushed it aside. Okay, just keep your eyes on that.
That is very interesting. I didn't even catch that one because you're right. I mean, so many people were talking about the Kyrie situation. So very interesting. We're going to keep an eye on these Celtics really closely there, and the Raptors, of course. But let's move on and talk about the Chicago Bulls because they were riding high at the top seed in the East for a really long time before the Heat came in and kind of ruined that for them. So what's going on in Chicago here?
You know, Jenna, the injuries I think have caught up to them, and it doesn't look like Lonzo Ball is coming back in time for the playoffs, which that's a big key to their defense and their ball movement on offense, right? When they deploy that lineup with Caruso, Ball, Levine, DeRozan, right? Like that really, really helps them defensively, helps them with ball movement, spacing, and cutting. The Lonzo Ball loss will be big, and it's been a tough year for them. And DeMar's kind of fallen back to earth a little bit, through January or so, or mid-February, we're saying MVP candidate. He still may finish top 5 on people's ballots, but he's really kind of, falling off the pace a little bit here. And it's hard because it's a heavy load to carry to carry that burden all season. But, they're still an excellent team, still well coached by Billy Donovan. And right now they're the 5th seed. It would be Boston and Chicago. If it were to match up today, it wouldn't be a cakewalk for Boston, right? That would be a tough series. But, so for me, I have a moderate level of concern because of the Lonzo Ball injury.
Couldn't agree more. All right, let's talk about our last team in the East that we're going to assess tonight, and that is the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, they received that great news in the return of Kyrie Irving coming back to play regular season, not regular season, but home games. So it's looking good for them down the stretch now because that was pretty much the biggest concern, right?
Yeah. For sure. This team is so interesting. I'm going to say moderate concern. And it's only because, they're not going to be fully whole. And with the Ben Simmons situation is still a problem for them, right? He has not played since the trade. He had an epidural in his back. And anyone that knows anything about medicine, if someone has to get an epidural, that is tremendous amount of pain that the individual is in. And herniated discs in your back is not like, a sore knee. Just give it a little. No, like that's a major thing. And Simmons is signed on for he's under contract for the next 3 seasons, I believe. He's the future of this team along with Kevin Durant and potentially Kyrie Irving if they do in fact decide to extend him, which, from the Nets, I would think twice about that. But, that's a conversation for a different day. You don't want to rush him back into the playoffs because it doesn't look like he'll have time to ramp up in the regular season into the most intense level games with a bad back or with a just barely recovered back. And now he's got to bang around with Giannis and these other big dudes. And that's a lot to put on. So, I mean, I would be shocked if we even see him this postseason just because it's a dangerous thing. And you got to look at the long-term picture. And with Kevin Durant already signed, for the next 5 years, I think, look, you go into the postseason, Jenna, with KD and Kyrie, you got a chance, right? You still can advance, and
100%.
because they're brilliant. I think with a healthy Ben Simmons, this would clearly be a team that could make and win the NBA Finals, just because of what Simmons provides defensively and playmaking and rebounding and pushing the pace, which are all areas the Nets need help in. But I think for this season, I just don't see that happening. So moderate concern for them is where I'm at.
Yeah, I hear you. I think next year is going to really be their year. Hopefully Simmons is back and things like that, because again, he's been dealing with those herniated discs since his time with the Sixers, and he sat out an entire season with them. So this is something that's been, a lingering issue, to say the least.
Let me ask you a question though, Jenna. If you were,
I love this.
If you were Sean Marks, the Nets GM, would you give Kyrie Irving a contract extension? 5 years, 200 and something million. And I ask that because, not because he's not good, but would you call him a reliable employee?
Okay. So this is where I was going to go with this. If we're talking strictly basketball and I'm making this decision as the GM in terms of I'm winning, of course, that's how you should operate. However, loyalty, reliability, and discipline per se is required as well to win and be qualities of these players. So, okay. I would extend Kyrie Irving because of the talent, and hopefully this issue is behind us now. Again, you can't tell the future. I would extend him. However, if this was a player that was maybe my number 3 guy, somebody that I can maybe easily replace that's not a generational talent, then I'd pass it up and be like, you know what, let's take a chance on, XYZ, or, hit up the draft, hit up some trades. But I would extend him, but that's an incredible valid question.
Because, so basically you're saying his talent trumps all the other issues that you could potentially have. Because what I say about Kyrie is, let's say we lived in a world, Jenna, where there was no COVID-19. That never happened. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so no vaccines. Are we confident there wouldn't be some other issue that he would just, go AWOL? For instance, right? Last season when he needed PTO and took off like 2 weeks.
True. Here's the thing with Kyrie. Kyrie's going to do what Kyrie wants. We've learned that many times over. And that PTO incident is a great example. So there's a lot of factors to consider. I mean, again, the talent, just what he is. I mean, he's up there. I mean,
no doubt.
He's the
one of the most skilled players to ever play in this game. The talent is, it is undeniable. There's no question there. My thing is just like, in his entire career, he's played more than 70 games in a season 3 times. And that was all before the age of 25 when he was in Cleveland. He hasn't played 70 games or more in years. And it's not just AWOL for COVID or PTO. Yeah. He often gets injured. There are a lot of factors here that I'm like, do the Nets want to tie it to KD, who, Achilles, and every year seems to have something that keeps him out for like 15 to 20 games. Kyrie, who it could be injury, it could be vaccine, it could be who knows what. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of unknowns to put your chips on the table for.
No, big facts. But and the thing is too, it's hard as well because he also comes as that sort of package deal with KD. If we're really spitting all the facts, he brought everyone there. He just didn't show up to the party. But, so he kind of comes as that package deal with KD, and that you can, spark another conversation about chemistry. You can, and things like that. If you don't extend him, is KD going to stay? And is he, you know what I mean? There's so many questions and layers to it. But here's the thing. If I am the Nets and we're going to sit down with Kyrie and his agent and, really talk about the future and extending, this is something that all needs to be put on the table. And they need to say to him, listen, man, I don't know if we need to put something in your contract that's some sort of safety net for us. But we need to discuss, the fine print here because not to call you out, but like if you're going to miss
call
time.
him out. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
your PTO for this long. Like, how are you supposed to be a leader? How are people supposed to respect you if you're going to keep a history of this behavior? And again, you got to word that differently and lightly because you don't want to offend anyone. But, at the end of the day, you got to call a spade a spade. It's a lot of money and it's a lot of people's asses on the line.
I'm with you 100%. Yeah, that's just a question. I was like, wonder what you do.
Incredible question, though. Such a very great, insightful conversation that I wish we had more time for. But don't worry, I'm sure we'll argue with some people in a bar about it, with our masks on, of course. But let's shift gears and go to the West, where, in my opinion, isn't as deep, but the competition is steep, and there are a lot of big-name stars up in here. So let's kick it off and talk about the red-hot Phoenix Suns, because they are, just holding that number one spot by a mile at this point. And, I hate to say this, but they've been breezing, it seems. And Chris Paul is now back. So what's the deal?
No Chris Paul, we still win. No Devin Booker, we still win. No DeAndre Ayton, we still win. The Suns are a machine, Jenna. They have been the best team in the NBA all season long. 61-14, number 1 in adjusted net rating, number 3 in adjusted offensive rating, number 3 in adjusted defensive rating. Look, man, they're letting y'all know that run to the finals last year, that was no fluke. AD, all right? We are legit and we're a good team. And everybody, those fringe guys, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, they've all gotten better. And this is huge for them. Right now, if I'm the Suns, I have zero worry. What I would do is I would maybe think about how I'm going to rest some guys down the stretch. We still want to win all our games, but, we don't want to, no one's going to catch us. We're 9 games up on the second. There's not enough time. Even if we lose all 9, you can't catch us, right? Like, it won't work. We own the tiebreakers. There's not enough games left for the Suns to lose their number 1 spot. So I would say, and talk to the players, right? Like, what do you want to do? They're always going to want to play, but it's like, all right, but I want to rest you because the playoffs are what matters. And keep in mind, they have that week off right before the playoffs are, because they're not going to be in the play-in. And we're having some technical difficulties, folks. So hold on a second. And I cannot hear us right now or hear me. Anyway, I'm going to continue. So there's no concern. I'm on zero concern right now.
1 second.
Oh, there you go. You're back. I can hear you. So the Suns, I'm not concerned about them. They're looking great. I think, again, use the rest wisely towards the end of the season here. No one's going to catch you for that 1 seed. You've got that locked up. Figure out how best to have the guys sharp as they head towards the postseason, while also keeping in mind the rest that you need, because, this team, deserves is such an interesting phrase, but this team deserves the right to come back and have a chance to defend their Western Conference crown and go back to the finals this year, hopefully, with a chance to actually win the NBA finals. So we shall see what happens there. Jenna, are you back?
I am back, guys. This is the point of a great live show. You just never know what's going to go on here. I mean, if you're a regular listener of this show, which I hope you are, you'll know that your girl always has these problems, unfortunately. So, here we are. I'm back. I'm ready to go. I couldn't hear. I don't know what was going on there before. But
we had some issues. But to sum it up, I'm not worried about the Phoenix Suns.
Oh, thank God. Me neither. I'm more worried about myself. So let's talk about the Grizzlies, because you got to just love the Grizzlies this season, especially. I mean, the high that Ja Morant is taking them on and carrying them in the number 2 slot. I mean, think about last season and seasons before that recently. I mean, they were clawing and chomping at the bit to just hope that they were here.
Look, the Grizzlies, Jenna, I will say this. I love my Grizzly Cubs. Shout out to Ja, my boy Trip J, Desmond Bain, all the rest of the crew. So happy with how they played this year. Looks like they're going to be the number 2 seed, which is awesome. But I am concerned because Ja Morant, the Grizzlies said, "Oh, knee soreness, out 2 weeks." That's not a diagnosis. Like, so listen, the way he plays, that worries me. The jumping ability, the way he lands, all the torque and force he puts on that knee. And he's not a very big man. He's slight, right? So that concerns me. I have a moderate level of concern about that. Two, they've kind of expended a lot of energy coming out here, winning a bunch of games, which young teams should do. I want Taylor Jenkins to kind of, get them on that path where they're starting to get right and get healthy for the playoffs, right? So you can figure out a way to get some guys some strategic rest here and there while still winning games. Do that, because I think it's very important. And then in the postseason, when the rotation shortens and you don't go 10, 11 deep like they have been, do guys like DeAnthony Melton and Conchar, et cetera, do they stay sharp with maybe less minutes than in some games they won't play at all in the postseason? So that's something that I'm keeping my eye on for the Memphis Grizzlies.
100%. And this next team is interesting. The Golden State Warriors. Now, they're number 3 in the West. Nothing to worry about compared to other teams. But you got to give them kudos for the season that they've had, because Steph Curry, they're currently without. He's got that foot sprain there. And, you can't mess with the ligaments that he's got going on in that foot. So you got to watch him, monitor him. You got Klay Thompson back. But again, off that Achilles, 2 serious injuries he had there with the ACL. And then Draymond Green's been in and out of the lineup. So, they're managing to keep the 3rd seed. But, how worried should we be, especially in the state of these injured Warriors?
I have more than moderate. The house isn't quite burning down, but I'm concerned. 1, the Steph Curry injury, as you mentioned. 2, look, they're in the 3rd spot, Jenna, 13, but they're only 13 and a half back of the 1st, so they're not catching Phoenix. They're probably not going to catch Memphis either, because they're 5 games behind Memphis right now. Jenna, they might not hold off Dallas. They're only 2 games up on the Mavericks, and
Dallas is a wild card too.
Steph is out. And Draymond has not played well since he returned from the disc injury in the back. Look, this is a team, I've said it before many times. They have a lot of miles on the bodies of those big 3, okay? They've played deep into June for, 5, 6 seasons, right? That wears on you, okay? So I have some concern about this team right now. And if I'm a Warriors fan, I'm really keeping my eye on things. And look, I love Kuminga and Moody and Jordan Poole and the young guys. But, man, we talking playoffs now. There's a whole different ball game. You ain't going to catch anybody up by surprise with your little fancy back cuts and your extra back screens and all that. The team's going to have you scouted. They know what's coming. What's your counter? What's your 3rd move, right? And if Steph and Draymond are not Steph and Draymond, they have no shot.
100%. They need this big 3 at a healthy 100%. And Klay Thompson is still riling back from that. And this is his first playoff experience since that. So it is a little weary there. And also another note about Steph Curry, the foot sprain right above the foot are those ankles. And we know how Steph is with the ankles.
Just something to keep an eye on. Something to keep an eye on.
100%. All right, let's move on and talk about these Dallas Mavericks that we've been mentioning pretty much all episode, because they are giving everyone trouble at this point.
Yeah, I have no concern right now, Jenna. They may catch the Warriors for that 3rd seed. They look like either way, whether they catch the Warriors or not, it's likely that they're going to have, although they have to hold up the Jazz. The Jazz are the 4th seed, or the 5 seed, excuse me. Then that would be a hell of a matchup. Jazz versus Mavericks. That's what it would be right now. 4 versus 5, with right now Dallas having home court advantage. Woo! Luka's playing well. He's playing like an MVP level player. First team all NBA level guy, really since the turn of the calendar. They're playing defense. Jason Kidd's got them guarding. I still think that they're, who's that secondary guy, right? And when shots are not falling. It's a lot of Dorian Finney-Smith and Jalen Brunson, and Spencer Dinwiddie has been a huge pickup for them, and he's going to be big time. He has playoff experience, so it'll be interesting to see how much they lean on him in the postseason. But look, this Dallas team, they're good, and they're going to be ready to see. Okay, we're going to advance past round 1. We're ready to make that next step. So it'll be interesting to see. But I have little to no concern about the Mavericks.
Yeah, and this Dallas team too has been they need a push in the postseason. You know how they always get halted too, like the next team we're
Mm-hmm.
about to talk about, the Jazz. But again, Jason Kidd does have these Mavs playing great defense. Love to see it. Let's talk about the Utah Jazz because I feel like for some reason they are the ghost that haunts me in the playoffs. And I'm not even on the Jazz, like huge Jazz fan, but they are the ghost that haunts me. And I just wonder if that weighs on my boy D Mitch.
They're the ghost that haunts themselves. I mean, look, the Jazz, look, this is, so in terms of concern level, house burning down, okay?
Whew.
Because this is, if they fail to advance to the conference finals this season, it's going to be time to blow that whole thing up because something is not working over there. You know, we talk about Rudy Gobert being the anchor of that defense, and Rudy's excellent. But when teams decide to go 5 out and the Jazz and their weak perimeter defenders get blown by, Rudy has to cover for them in the paint and also race back out to cover 3-pointers. He can't be in the paint and on the wing at the same time. He can only be in one place at a time. And the Jazz perimeter defenders do not offer enough resistance at the point of attack. That's a problem. And when your entire defense in your team is committed to a guy like Rudy, who is not a super plus offensively, and he has to be on the floor for your defense or else it'll crater, it makes beating you almost easy once you have the personnel. Once you can go 5 out, it's like, okay, we can beat this team. And this is where we're at with the Jazz right now. And it's tough. It really, really is tough. And, you know, I'm watching this team, Jenna, and look, if let's say the seedings hold and it's Dallas versus Utah, how many times do you think Luka is going to call for Rudy on that switch in the pick and roll and go at him every time? He's either going to score or get fouled. So, I mean, that's good, right? That's going to happen just about every time because as good as Rudy is defensively, getting Luka at the top of the key,
no.
That ain't going to work.
That's not happening. Not to mention, this Jazz team relies extremely heavy on Gobert. I mean, almost too much. You know what I mean?
That's their whole defense. When he's off the floor, they are atrocious on defense. Atrocious. You know, and we've heard all the rumors about Donovan and Rudy. What's their relationship like? Yada, yada. Look, again, they flame out this year. Don't be surprised if one of them asks out, and then what do the Jazz do? Right? Do you trade Rudy or do you trade Donovan? Because the question is, if you're the Jazz and you move one of them, you need to get back the most you can get back in return. Who on the trade market would command more value?
Right. This is more of a after the postseason conversation, but if you really want to sum it up, the Jazz kind of put all their eggs in a Mitchell basket. So I could see them giving up the defensive player of the year there in Gobert, and then
But what are they
he
getting
goes
back
on
in
the
return?
move to a title team. So yeah,
We'll
that's
see.
going to be interesting to say the least. But yeah, their back is definitely against the wall. So I think they're going to have an interesting offseason pending on how the postseason works there for them. Last but not least, let's talk about these Denver Nuggets. And I like to call them little wild card Denver Nuggets because, I mean, right now there's one man carrying this team on his back, and we have some stars that are lingering in the shadows and maybe back. We don't know. And I'm talking about Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, and we're talking about coming back from significant injuries in ACL and a back. So talk to me about this team, because for me, I'm running out the house because it's burning.
For the Jazz, Jenna, you know, the Nuggets, my fear for them is that, you know, God, Nikola Jokic had to carry such a load all season long. And, you know, Is he going to be worn out come the postseason because of carrying this team? And there's still no guarantee that Murray or Michael Porter Jr. comes back. It looks like Porter Jr. is the closest to coming back. I saw a video of him on the floor the other day, working out, shooting. They're both shooting, but, you know, shooting pregame is different than banging around in the playoffs and people like running you through hard screens and all that, running and jumping up and down, right? So we shall see. Look, if Porter Jr. comes back, that'll be big because that's an outlet for Nikola Jokic. So if he's getting doubled and he makes, you know, he's the best passing big maybe ever in the history of basketball, he's going to find Porter Jr., get him some open shots. And if Porter can come back and play at the level he played at, not the beginning of this season, but when he played at last season, that's going to be a huge weight off of Jokic's shoulders. So right now, my concern is just more like, I want to wait and see and just see what's going to happen. But it would be a shame to, waste this season, potentially another MVP season for Nikola Jokic, but injuries are part of the game. It happens.
That is very true. That is why this league is so interesting, and it is a make or miss league, as we like to say it. And hey, I mean, this is it. We're in the home stretch here. 2 weeks out from the play-in tournament, and then the playoffs kick off the day after the play-in tournament closes. So it's going to get good, guys. You want to stay with your girl and your guy over here at 7 Footers Podcast.
No doubt, guys. And as always, you know where to find us. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, SoundCloud, all that at 7 Footers Pod on Twitter, at 7 Footers Podcast on Instagram, at JS Hector, at Jenna Lemoncelli. And until next week, peace.
Spent a couple years out here with these raps, trying to have a plan that we made come true. Applied to some jobs, but I ain't hit back. I don't want to trap, what some man gonna do? Chevy told me come